On the peak of Olympus, where the gods reside amidst clouds and eternal light, nothing is allowed to be imperfect. Everything there is flawless: beauty, strength, immortality. But one day, that perfection was shattered by the arrival of a child, Hephaestus, the son of the goddess Hera. But from the first moment Hera saw the child, she felt disgust. Unlike other divine children, with their radiant auras, Hephaestus was born deformed, with crooked legs and an uneven face. To Hera, the goddess of pride and power, this was a disgrace. Without hesitation, she picked up the child, with the very hands that had given birth to him, and threw him off Olympus, into the depths of the ocean. No tears, no farewell. The child of a god, treated like trash. That was the moment Hephaestus began his journey. Not with light, but with darkness. Not with love, but with rejection. Yet it was from that deep abyss that a fire was ignited, the fire of existence. The fire of one who would make all of Olympus remember his name. No one knows how long Hephaestus fell between the clouds and the ocean's depths. What is known is that when his small body collided with the cold water, the physical pain was nothing compared to the wound in his soul, being abandoned by his own mother. A young god who had never called anyone father, never heard a word of love, condemned simply for not being beautiful. But fate, ever unpredictable, would not let Hephaestus vanish in darkness. Deep beneath the ocean, where the light of Olympus had never reached, two sea goddesses, Thetis and Eurynome, found the child. They didn't care about his deformed appearance. They saw in his eyes a spark, weak but fierce, that had never gone out. The two goddesses took Hephaestus to a secret cave deep within the sea. There, among corals, reefs, and mythical creatures, he was raised with compassion, not fame. But while other divine children played atop the mountains, learning to wield bows and ride flying horses, Hephaestus sat alone with fire, stone, and metal. He had no friends. No one taught him to fight. But those hands, clumsy at first, slowly learned to bend iron, carve stone, and forge fire. In total solitude, Hephaestus discovered his own world, the world of creation. Every bracelet, every small blade, every flying mechanical bird he made was a voice, a whisper for things he couldn't express. Without a forge, he created one from ancient volcanic rock. Without tools, he made his own. Without books, he learned. From failure, blistered hands, flames scorching his skin, but he never stopped. Every time he struck the hammer, it was as if he was striking at the silence of the divine realm. I still exist. I will not be forgotten. Hephaestus was not only growing in body, he was silently preparing for the day of his return. Not with rage, but with creations that would make even the gods bow their heads. Many years passed since Hephaestus had been thrown from heaven. The boy of that time had now become a muscular young man, his skin tanned by fire, his hands calloused by metal, and his gaze colder than the deep sea. But within Hephaestus, the silent fire still burned, the fire of existence, of a longing to be recognized, and of a question that had never been answered. Why did my mother abandon me? Hephaestus knew that to make Olympus look his way, anger alone was not enough. Strength alone was not enough. The only thing that could make the gods bow was art. An art that would astonish those who once despised him. He began to craft a gift, not for Zeus, not for Athena or Apollo, but for Hera herself, the mother who had cast him aside. It was a throne, forged from pure gold, encrusted, with jewels and inlaid with swirling patterns that seemed to move. A masterpiece no one could resist. And as Hephaestus predicted, when the gift was presented to Hera's palace, she could not take her eyes off it. But the throne was not just a decoration, it was a trap. When Hera sat down, invisible chains suddenly rose from the throne's seat, binding her tightly. No god, not even Zeus, could break them. These chains were not created by any spell, but were the crystallization of intelligence, hatred, and a technique beyond the gods' understanding. Olympus trembled. Hera was furious. The gods were in panic. They tried everything to break the throne, but every effort only highlighted the superiority of its creator. And then, only one name was uttered in despair: Hephaestus. But he did not rush to return. For Hephaestus, this was not an opportunity to be forgiven, but a choice to make Olympus invite him back as a god worthy of respect. In the end, it was Dionysus, the god of wine, with his charm and eloquence, who sought him out. Not with orders or authority, but with fine wine, music, and a sincere invitation. Come back, Hephaestus. Olympus needs you. No one else can do what you do. Hephaestus nodded, but this time he did not return as an abandoned child. He returned as a master, an artisan no one could replace, and from that moment on, Olympus had a new god. Not walking with proud feet, but standing firm with the hands of a genius. Hephaestus returned to Olympus not with applause, not with admiring gazes, but in silence, filled with respect. They remembered the deformed figure of the past, the child who had once been cast out by Hera. But now, the forgotten one had become an artisan who made the entire divine realm bow their heads. Though he still walked with a limp, Hephaestus was no longer a name to pity, but a symbol of unwavering talent. Olympus gave him a special place, the forge of the gods, deep inside a dormant volcano, where only those who dared enter the Zal, fire, could find the truth. In the darkness and scorching heat, Hephaestus did what no one else could. He breathed life into metal. He didn't forge iron and steel merely to serve war. For Hephaestus, forging was a ritual, where he poured his emotions, intellect, and even his own pain into each creation. From his hands, magnificent creations were born, surpassing all imagination. The legendary Aegis shield of Athena, with a surface that reflected the fear of its enemies, as though each engraving knew how to speak. The invisible helmet of Hades, made of solidified darkness, capable of concealing even a soul from the living world. The armor of Achilles, cast from metals never seen on earth, so strong that no mortal blade could pierce it. And the mechanical birds that could fly, the golden slaves who could move, speak, and serve in the forge as if they were living creatures. Hephaestus did not just create tools, he created wonders. Though the son of Hera, and never acknowledged by Zeus, with his extraordinary craftsmanship, Hephaestus earned a place no one dared to contest. God of fire, of smithing, of art, and invention. Yet strangely, amidst all that glory, Hephaestus led a solitary life. He rarely appeared at grand feasts, seldom took part in divine disputes. He knew, though now revered, the darkness of his past had never disappeared. He was still Hephaestus, the god who walked in pain, lived amidst fire, and could never forget Hera's gaze the day she cast him out of heaven. But it was this very thing that formed his identity. Hephaestus had no shining halo like Apollo, no wisdom like Athena, nor the thunderous strength of Zeus. But while they symbolized power, he symbolized resilience, the will to rise from the depths, and the belief that even a crippled hand can create greatness. And from deep within his forge, every hammer strike rang out like a proclamation. Not everyone is born of light, but in the darkness, there are flames that cannot be extinguished. Although Hephaestus was honored as the great blacksmith of Olympus, there was one thing he could not forge himself: love. In a contradictory effort of compensation and calculation, Zeus, the king of gods, granted Hephaestus a gift: Aphrodite, the goddess of beauty, the most alluring of all gods, born from sea foam and light, with skin as smooth as marble and a smile that could stop wars. They wed in a dazzling ceremony of gold, with gods blessing them and nature singing. But behind this perfect exterior, a hidden tragedy lay. Aphrodite never loved Hephaestus. To her, the embodiment of eternal spring, a crippled god, immersed in the smoke of forges and the scent of metal, was a complete contrast. She could not love one who did not speak the language of romance, who did not understand beauty as fragile as a petal, and who did not shower her with sweet words like the other gods did. Hephaestus knew this. He was not naive, but despite knowing, he loved. Loved with all the sincerity of a heart once abandoned. He gifted her the finest jewelry, necklaces that glowed with the rhythm of her heartbeat, golden shoes lighter than the wind. Each creation was not only to admire her beauty, but also a silent plea. Please don't leave me. Yet, love, when not reciprocated, soon becomes chains. Aphrodite quickly found another embrace, Ares, the god of war, whose mighty appearance and arrogant demeanor melted her cold heart. His fierce gaze was something Hephaestus, no matter how skillful, could not forge. And so, in his absences from the forge, they secretly met, right at the peak of Olympus. Their whispers, stolen glances, all hidden from him. But not from the eyes of Helios, the sun god, who witnessed everything and reported back to Hephaestus. He did not rage. He did not destroy. He did not scream. Hephaestus remained silent. Then, he began to craft. He created a net of gold, fine as spider silk, but unbreakable. Invisible to the naked eye, it only appeared when he commanded it. And one day, while Ares and Aphrodite were lost in their pleasures, the net fell, ensnaring them tightly on the bed. Hephaestus dragged them to the great hall of the gods for all of Olympus to witness the betrayal. There was laughter, mockery, pitying glances, but Hephaestus cared not. To him, this was not revenge, but the truth that had to be revealed. The truth that, though he could forge the chariot of the sun, he could not forge a faithful heart. After that event, the marriage ended. Aphrodite returned to her freedom, and Hephaestus returned to his forge, the only place where he was not deceived. Love, for him, now was nothing but a rusted memory, beautiful, but sharp and painful. On the peak of Olympus, where light always shines, where heroic songs echo throughout the heavens, there was a god who did not need a halo to stand out, for the flame inside him never extinguished. Hephaestus, the god of fire, of smithing, of invention, was unlike any other god. Not because he limped as he walked, nor because he had once been abandoned by his mother, but because he had accepted his pain, forged it into strength, and rose from the very place they thought was a pit. While other gods were associated with glory, power, or beauty, Hephaestus's legacy lay in those things no one could see with the naked eye. His calloused hands full of skill, the terrifying silence as he forged, and the unwavering belief that true value was not in appearance, but in what one creates for the world. He did not wield destructive power like Zeus, nor was he as swift as Hermes, nor as proud as Apollo. But every shield, every sword, every chariot used by the gods bore the mark of Hephaestus. He was not at the center of stories, but he was the foundation of all. It was as if every great thing on Olympus needed his silent presence. Yet, deep, in the eyes of the god of the forge, there remained something that never faded, the loneliness of one who creates greatness but is never understood. Perhaps that was the price of his extraordinary talent. Perhaps he understood, since the day Hera cast him out of heaven, fate did not write him a beautiful story, but wrote a great legend. And then, when war broke out, when the gods called each other to battle, the first one they sought out was always Hephaestus. For they knew, only he could forge the weapon to turn the tide of the divine conflict. He did not need praise. He did not need titles. The only thing he needed was the furnace ablaze, the sound of the hammer echoing through the stone, and the quiet but profound recognition from the world. Hephaestus, once cast aside, once mocked, once betrayed, had ultimately become an immortal symbol. Not because he conquered, but because he never surrendered. And so, even if the forge's fire dies down, even if the story is forgotten, somewhere in the hearts of humanity, there will always be a smoldering memory. The memory of the crippled god who turned pain into art, metal into soul, and became a legend.
Thank you so much for taking the time to watch the video. If you found the video helpful and interesting, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any future videos. Wishing you a wonderful day, and see you in the next video.